YouTube, Ozik, going the Goat House is back. And we got a new intro screen. Still not sure how I feel about it. Draft themed. It's a little wild, though. Definitely a little wild, but that's all right. Today we're going over boom or bust prospects from the 2022 NFL Draft. I got 10 of them. Pretty much can put every quarterback in here. 3 of the 10 are quarterbacks here. We'll break it down why they could be boom prospects or boom players in the NFL or bust players in the NFL. So excited about this. Did this one last year as well. A bunch of draft content on the way. We'll get our position rankings here very soon. Hopefully next week, early next week should start those. And then we'll be live during day 1 of the NFL Draft, day 2 and 3, live on Twitter with thoughts and everything there. So make sure you follow our Twitter. Fan voted mock draft going on there right now. Any link you're looking for, pin in the comment section. Please like, subscribe, turn notifications on. Join us for all that content. Here is our Twitter, and there's that fan voted mock draft that's going on. We're only on the 7th pick, so you probably, if you've missed out on the first 6, you haven't missed much yet. Here, only 2 hours left on this giant selection. We'll make a video out of this, of course, as well. So first, boomer bust prospect. We start with the quarterbacks. Got to go Malik Willis, obviously, who's most people's quarterback number 1 here. And I could agree with that. You know, it's kind of a class where it's a weaker quarterback class. There's weaknesses for all these quarterbacks. So, you might as well take the upside guy, right? The potential boom prospect here in Malik Willis, and why he could be a boom prospect. Even better than expected. Help this quarterback class exceed expectations. He's got incredible arm talent. We saw that with the arm strength. Obviously, the ability to make the throws down the field. Especially down the sideline, too. He's had some success even at Liberty. He's had his struggles, but his success along the sideline, especially downfield, pretty impressive. There is a knock on him to ability to read coverages, but I've noticed, I don't know if I fully agree with that. I've noticed that he's done a pretty good job, again, down the sideline, downfield, knowing when to take that shot, depending on what coverage teams are in. I thought he's done a decent job for a Liberty quarterback, especially reading coverages over the middle of the field. We'll talk about the negatives in a second, but the boom, obviously that arm talent combined with the athleticism, his mobility, the ability to shed tackles, evade tackles, and run for, a good amount of yards, production, touchdowns, obviously that, and the escapability is big in today's NFL. So you see that, the throw on the run ability, all those kind of wow factors he has. But the negatives, accuracy, and it seems to come over the middle of the field. I talked about, maybe there are some negatives reading coverages sometimes. That more so is in the middle of the field, but I don't know if that's how I would label it. A lot of people are kind of like, he's not reading the coverages. I think he's just kind of just misreading. He's not reading defenders, not necessarily coverages. Sometimes he doesn't see the actual defender. He's too focused on the receiver, his receiver, and where he's going with the ball, kind of predetermined. That's more how I see it, right? And it happens a little bit more over the middle of the field. And the accuracy, overall, he's not really an inaccurate quarterback, but there is times where you see like a flashy play, and then all of a sudden he'll have a layup throw. Maybe it's not so much of a layup. Sometimes it's just wide open. It could be that layup throw 5-10 yards down the field, or it could be maybe not a layup, but wide open 20-25 yards down the field, and he will beam it above this guy, the target's head, 10 yards above his head. So that's where the accuracy problems happen. Can they fix that? So that is, is he a little on the shorter side too? That, sometimes quarterbacks in the NFL struggle if they don't have the height to see over the offensive line, see the entire field. And maybe that's why he doesn't see defenders. So you see reasons why he could be like a wow, big time player, and reasons why he could very well end up a bust. And like I said, we got multiple quarterbacks to talk about. Desmond Ridder, this is an interesting one because, I watched a lot of Ridder live. I watched some other guys more than Ridder maybe, some guys more than others. And I thought he wouldn't be a boomer bust prospect. I kind of thought based on live play and why going back and watch the tape's so important, but I thought he'd be kind of just what you're going to get. You're not getting a whole, anything crazy spectacular. You're not getting anything terrible. You kind of know what you're going to get. And I watched the tape, and I'm starting to think almost it's big changes for me. He's growing on me a little bit, and but I do think he's more of a boomer bust prospect than I thought as well. He's probably the best in class with his mechanics within the pocket. His footwork, avoiding pressure and sacks just off his footwork, and able to do that while reading the entire field. So I think his field vision is very solid as well. Probably knows how to go through his progressions. Probably one of the better quarterbacks in the class doing that. He can hit some NFL throws. He's got, it's a laser ball he's got. And some of the out routes, the sideline throws, even down the middle of the field, that shows up. So those are kind of, before he was kind of just like, you know what you're going to get. There's nothing wow about it. There's nothing terrible about it. Now, I start to see some things. Okay, that's pretty nice. Some good moments, some boom moments there. And then why he could be a bust. Yeah, some similarities with the three quarterbacks we're going to talk about. Kind of accuracy on layup throws. Like you see him make a wild throw, kind of just like Malik Willis, and then he'll have a 5-yard slant and he'll whip it 10 yards too far outside. I probably shouldn't say 10 yards, but 5 yards too far on the outside, 5 yards too high above the head. And that could be a little bit of a problem. Does go through his options well, but sometimes will insist on the first read, and then it'll turn it into a bad turnover. And throwing motion, I've heard some knocks on the throwing motion. NFL, they're so specific on what they want. And those guys, there's been so many of those guys over the past, and like they're good players like Desmond Ridder in college, but then teams they want their throwing motion to be such a specific way, which I don't love that the NFL teams do that, but they go and tweak it, and then when you tweak it, things don't go well. I don't know if they ever really went well when you really had to, maybe a long time ago in the past, but when you have to change a guy's throwing motion, and I'm not saying they have to, I don't think you have to change Ridder's throwing motion. Maybe it's a little on the slower side, but if you have to change it, if a team takes him we're going to tweak his throwing motion, I'm going to hate the pick. I don't think he's going to be good then. So that's kind of the downside. Another thing that is very weird, it's kind of weird, is mechanics are, usually with that accuracy thing, usually it's something with the footwork mechanics and you just tweak it, and those things are tweakable, obviously, and then it fixed the accuracy issue. Josh Allen would be an example, right? That's almost a negative thing. His footwork mechanics are so good right now that they don't really need tweaking, but then can we fix that random accuracy issue? So it's almost like a positive that kind of turns into a negative. Weird. It's kind of weird there. So rarely have that come up with some of these prospects. So ends up being a unique prospect, which I didn't think I would think about Ridder before I watched the tape. So very interesting. Sam Howell is going to be the other one. I like Sam Howell. He's got that wild playability. He's got that arm talent. He was better maybe last year, 2 years ago before this last year when he had, he didn't lose his, in terms of college terms, elite talent. Offensive line struggled a little bit this year. I didn't love the play calling this year, maybe last year either. So he has that upside getting in the NFL system, and he has that incredible arm. I love his toughness too. He's a tough kid in general, but bounced off, defenders a lot and was very tough to sack. Even watching against maybe the best competition he played, or one of the Notre Dame, when they had him sacked a few times and he's carrying guys, so that was pretty damn impressive. And it's sometimes these quarterbacks are able to run like that and break tackles in college, and it's a whole different story in the NFL. They're way better tacklers, and it changes big time for these quarterbacks. Howell, his build, his toughness, it's not gonna be as easy for him, but I don't see much of a decline in that. So I like that a lot, that he's able to, kind of shed those sacks, which, you look at, not that he's going to be Josh Allen or Justin Herbert or Patrick Mahomes, but those are some top-tier elite guys, and that's what they do. That's a big thing that they do. So I like that a lot. Why he could be a bust, he's a little sloppy with mainly the footwork mechanics, a little panicky at times, but there's times where he's so calm and it looks really good, but there's times where he's a little panicky. Something I noticed is probably his big negative is it kind of goes into him being a little too eager to run, early on in the rep, eager to run. It kind of goes into that, but sometimes he'll step up in a collapsed pocket looking to run. I think looking to run. It's tough to say if he's what really his plan, his future plan is in that play, but he will step up in that collapsed pocket, and I think it's him kind of panicking, looking to run. So sometimes you can't fix that type of thing. It's kind of up here, and you can't really fix that thing. So that's really why he could be a bust type guy. But has that boom potential with that arm talent, and he has that big playability. He has great production. He's tough. He can run. So those quarterbacks are definitely boom or bust guys, more so than the other ones. But now on to a different position group, which I actually have three from this group as well. Traylon Burks, wide receiver from Arkansas, and there's more. I kind of had to summarize, for the boomer bust because I couldn't fit it all in there. But the boom ability, I mean, he's very, as a prospect, maybe not, we don't know as in the NFL yet, will he be elite after the catch? But as a prospect, elite after the catch, and you kind of can, versatile. That's another thing. He's very versatile, and kind of some of these guys that are succeeding today, the Deebo Samuels, the A.J. Browns, any of the guys that you kind of give, you can put him in the slot, you get him a quick pass, just let him go to work. You can put him outside, you can make a big time catch out there. You can kind of give him the end around. You can line him in the backfield if you wanted to as well. So he has that ability, which teams are looking for because it's kind of rare. Like, when do these guys pop up in draft classes? They don't really pop up in draft classes. So that's why it's a weird one. It's like you can view him as a safe prospect at the same time being a risky prospect. So he has that boomer bust because you feel like the reason for safe is like you feel like, yeah, just get him. You can use him in different ways. Worst case, you're kind of have him as a gadget guy, right? And he's pretty big time doing that. But yeah, why he could be a bust, he's a limited route tree, especially outside. I think people look at him. I've seen people categorize him in the X receiver department. I just don't know if they're not watching a whole lot or they think he's going to develop something, but he's got good moments outside, but really he's a slot receiver, and a lot of his productions come from things underneath, right? The big plays outside, they've happened, but they're more so the ones, if you're watching highlights, the ones you see there, that's majority of them, right? You're not watching the whole tape. But he has some good play on the outside as well. But he's very limited out there. Could he just be that slot guy? You got to get the ball to him so he can be his full potential. He can get that, with after the catch ability. Sometimes those guys, when that's kind of the problem with them, limited route tree, maybe they're not going to be as versatile. They're going to be limited to this role. Sometimes those guys end up being busts in the NFL. He's not, at all N'Keal Harry, but N'Keal Harry because he was an outside receiver, but he was so good after the catch, kind of big body guy, can make that contested catch, but, didn't have that route tree, isn't very good at running routes, can't really get the separation. So right now where N'Keal Harry's at, I'm kind of thinking a team should just get him, put him in the slot, let him go to work after the catch to see if he can revive his career. So could that be something that Burks ends up being? But I definitely think he has a lot more to him. And just so damn good after the catch there. He's not for everybody. Teams aren't going to want to take that risk with him. Another receiver is going to be Drake London. London here, a rare contested catcher, obviously. We see him high point the ball, just, almost box out defenders, take the ball away. And combining that kind of with his athleticism and, after the catch ability, and, a guy you can kind of give screen passes to, quick slants to. It's kind of rare. All that together is pretty damn rare, and a contested catch ability makes you go, yeah, wow, that's something. But why he could be a bust, and that kind of goes into it too. Sometimes the big-time contested catch guys in college just don't really work out in the NFL. You got to go against way more physical corners, even the safeties. You won't get the opportunity as much. It's more about getting separation. But he's extremely good at the contested catches, obviously. But limited routes and the main, besides the limited routes, which was kind of a comeback, screen, and quick slant. First off, that the guys that have been limited to that at the college level going to the NFL, they haven't. Most of them, I'd say about like 75 to 80% of them haven't really worked out in the NFL. Because they're asked to do a lot more. But a bigger thing to me is if you watch him, everything seems to be on the left side of the field, even left side of the left hash. He has some play, obviously, outside of that, but that scares me a little bit. That's something that actually scares me. So he's going to have to be able to do more, even though there's a lot of wow ability. He's going to have to be able to do more. I think we're looking at specific teams looking for that X receiver. You want on the left side of the field for now, and he's going to have to develop more to his game. But there's a lot of flashy things that you love about him as well. And as good as the contested catches are, I think he had 8 drops this year too, which is a little bit higher than you would like. And then one more receiver, Christian Watson, who's been getting a lot of buzz lately. And why he's getting that buzz is because he has that very, very rare speed. Well, not just speed, explosiveness, basically athleticism plus length. I mean, very, very lengthy Just rare combination, rare combination there, and can flat out fly as well. And he's got some decent production from different types of plays as well. But that's why everyone's all of a sudden in love. My problem is if you watch him on tape, he's very raw. Like he doesn't really know how to fully use those traits. We see the rare traits of length and athleticism, and the great receivers that have had those traits, the great prospects, I should say, kind of take advantage of that. They're constantly getting separation with their athleticism. They're able to high point the ball. They're able to, even fight guys off the line. Incredible after the catch. And, he's pretty good in those categories, but doesn't fully use his traits. At sometimes you see him, go up and high point the ball. You see him get an end around sometimes, and you see him outrun guys. Doesn't separate. The separation doesn't really match those traits. So he's a little raw. He's not the youngest of the receiver prospects either. Not that he's old. So that's a little tricky. It's a little tricky. You're gonna have to get him to use these traits to get a lot more out of him. You would hope to do that within the first 3 years or even less than that too. So to me, he's a boom or bust guy. He went from kind of a sleeper guy to a boom or bust guy. Maybe he's getting a little bit too much hype at this point too, based on what I've seen here. Next up, talking about offensive tackle, Charles Cross, who's starting to get some buzz as well. And he's been we've seen him mocked in the top 10, or if not in the top 10, it's been top 20. But he's been getting buzz very recently. Talk about the tackle's going to fly off the board. There's teams that within the top 10 could very well take him. Should be the third tackle, could be even earlier. It's all depending on fit. So he's getting some buzz. And you see the pass protection's very good. The technique, the footwork is on point, but it's so damn quick. Lateral movement, dropping back. It's so good. It's so smooth. And we see, it's so different like 10 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago versus now at the tackle. Some of these athletic, crazy footwork guys that we know are good in pass protection, they're kind of taking over the NFL, more so at right tackle. So I wonder if somebody moves in the right tackle. I'm fine with either side. But these guys are starting to take over. Like 10 years ago, we would not be talking about as a first-round pick. Probably not really because weaknesses. It's just there's too much left to be determined, and that kind of goes in. I guess the system he came from, that Mississippi State system, it's just a heavy pass, very heavy pass, rarely running the ball, and it's just such quick throws. You're not even the quarterback's barely even his 3-step drop yet. The ball is out. You're just trying to get the ball out quick, get on the ball, do it over again. So couple things there. One thing, he shows me the technique and everything in good reps, that he's good enough in pass protection, but in the NFL, there's going to be longer reps, more lengthy reps. So can he hold on for a lot longer? Limited power. So compared to a guy like Evan Neal, Ikem Ekwonu, guys like that. So, if he has to hold on for longer reps and you got a very physical bull rusher at the pass rush position, how will he be? I'm not super worried about the pass protection, but there are questions on how will he be in those situations. But very limited in the run game. We didn't see enough of him in the run game, and there's definitely some more he has to work on. So it's going to have to be a pass-heavy team here for Charles Cross, and there's not a ton of those teams. And there's teams that are just desperate for tackle, like, hey, we'll just get the best available tackle because we need one very, very badly. Is he going to work out? So he might be scheme-specific as well, but there's so much good, and like why he could be one of the best pass protectors. Really, he can be a Pro Bowl pass protector, based off his pass protection, I should say, Pro Bowl tackle, not too far down the line because it's so good in that category. So definitely a boomer bust guy. Some of the defensive guys, we actually got 2 Georgia guys in a row here. We'll talk about Trayvon Walker, who I love. Just the incredibly rare traits. You see the size, the length, the power, the speed, and not just speed, quickness, agility, all these different things for Walker here is just ridiculous. You just do not see it. And he's got good play. You may say he doesn't have great production. That's pretty true, but he's got good play, whether he's rushing with his hand, the dirt off the edge position, just beating guys with his strength or length. If he's standing up and rushing, if he's dropping in coverage. I think his best tape, he's got some good moments dropping in coverage, using his length to deflect passes and make quarterbacks go elsewhere because they know how much ground he's covering. But I think his best play is actually from the interior. When he faces guards, straight up with a guard or the 3 technique position, he's just dominates them. And it's a combination of everything, but it's mainly his length. The guards can't even get their hands on him, and he's just too explosive out of the snap at the same time. So I could see him actually having big time production from there early on in his career. It's just a guy everyone wants to work with. Like, here's a guy, he's talented, he's coming from maybe the best defense in college football history. We want to work with this guy, with these traits. So, and he's talented. I think people knock him for the lack of production, but you don't realize he's switching spots constantly. He doesn't have as many pass rush snaps from the edge as the Hutchinsons, the Thibodeaux, these guys, the Johnsons. So that'll be a reason why. But also a reason why he's very raw as an edge rusher, mainly with his pass rush move. There's really no moves. There's really no plan. It's like, hey, I'm freaking strong and I'm freaking lengthy. Let me go use that on this pass rush snap, right? That's kind of what it is with him right now. But NFL coaches should be able to help him develop more, right? But how many year one, year two, how much are we going to see from him in terms of his pass rush ability? That's kind of the question there. So boom or bust. It's a guy that I'm not really counting on being a bust in general. That's why it was a tricky one to put on here, because I could see him. There's definitely a possibility he can be a bust as a pure edge rusher. If he does, but if he does end up a bust as an edge rusher, you're going to use him some way. I really think he can be a dominant player on the inside. It's just you don't really see him with his length like that, but he's so disruptive. Run game, pass game from there. If everyone on the planet consider him an interior player, he would probably be one of the more pro-ready, be number one interior player, defender, and he'd probably be known as a pro-ready guy when he's not really known as a pro-ready guy right now. So that's kind of the beauty of Trayvon Walker here, why in general, I don't know if he'll be a bust. He could be a bust in terms of a pure edge rusher, which I think he's got to be more than that. Chann Tindall will be the other Georgia Bulldog. It's kind of a boomer bust guy. Just an absolute freak athlete. Maybe the biggest combine winner, what he was able to do, and it kind of shows up on tape, just flying sideline to sideline, getting, downhill. It's just a freaky dude with that build. At the same time, it's pretty damn rare. Just flies all over the field. Very, very, eye-popping moments. Really blitzing. That's kind of how they used him. And attacking, on runs too, across field, downhill, things like that, like we mentioned already. Why he could be a bust, he's very scheme-specific to me. He's very limited in coverage. He kind of gets a little confused in coverage. I've actually seen moments where Nakobe Dean's actually probably goes unnoticed too, where a guy like Nakobe Dean ends up picking up Tindall's man in coverage because he gets a little confused. It seems to be zone, obviously, but his responsibility. But and then wasn't used a whole lot for Georgia. Limited snaps compared to the other guys as well. But so scheme specific where I feel like he can make it work in man coverage. He's not going to be crazy good at it, but he's much better in man than zone. If you're not blitzing him, you're not getting the most out of him. So I think he needs a man coverage scheme with a lot of blitz, high blitz rate. So and then usually those guys, they kind of need to stick on those types of teams. sometimes, we see that in the NFL where guys got so much production, they're so good, and they go to free agency, and there's not much of a market for them, and they get paid less than expected. Everyone's like, whoa, this is a really good player. Well, it's because he's very scheme specific. He's only going to fit some teams. So, but he can be good in the right schemes. Well, it happens all the time, but it'd be very interesting, if a team that's not, man coverage or a blitz team. It'd be more confusing if it's not a blitz team. I can definitely see like a zone blitz team taking them, obviously, but so that it'd be very intriguing if somebody random kind of takes them, right? So, but so much boom with him with that freaky ability, obviously. And one more has got to be Derek Stingley, one of the top corners in the class from LSU. Everyone's looking for man coverage corners because they're usually the most physical. And I always talk about it. NFL coaches don't want to have to coach man coverage. It's not something you really coach. You either can press or not, and stick with the guy, in man coverage, or you can't. There's really nothing to teach there. You can try to teach some press techniques, some footwork to help you. There's not a whole, when guys aren't good at man coverage, you never really see one transform big time. They can get better, but big time. So that's why NFL teams like the guys that are already polished in man coverage. He also has those traits too to go along with it. The great athleticism and the crazy length as well. Athletic ability all around for him when it comes to speed, leaping ability, and you see the length pop up quite a bit. Attacking the ball underneath, flies to the ball. You love those types of things as well. Can tackle. bust. And it just really comes down to him being very, very limited since year one. Year one, he's a true freshman. It's like, okay, this guy's going to be a future top pick. We know he's going to be a very good corner in the NFL one day. And it's just been limited in multiple ways. Limited in terms of his play, just hasn't been as good as that year. Not that it's bad, but it hasn't been as good. And you see him off the field a bit, so he's been limited in general as well. So is there some sort of decline? It's weird that a guy declines at that age. It's kind of rare, so you really don't think so. But and then his moments in zone coverage definitely you have to work with him there a little bit as well. So I feel like I'm mainly a man team, but you can teach zone obviously as well. So I think teams will be different on him. Most part, I'm a believer in talent doesn't really disappear. I think he was just already in his head, ready for the NFL. But there's teams like, I'm going to be a little worried to take him because what happened? What's going on here? Is there injury concern now too? So there's probably teams that would take that probably have him top 5 on their board in the entire draft. And there's probably teams that probably don't even have him in the top 20, So that's just kind of how it's going to be with Stingley. So if he goes back to the projection from when he was a freshman, he's a boom prospect. He might be the best corner in the NFL very early in his career, which is rare for corners. But if he continues to play like he has and miss some time, then it's kind of a bust label there. So that's one of the ultimate guys in this list here is Derek Stingley Jr. from LSU. But that'll be my boom or bust prospects video. And I'm sure there are other ones out there. We could be interested to see who you guys have under that category down in the comments. So be curious to see that. So we're going to get to position rankings very soon. We have more mock drafts. We're going to do sleepers, of course. Mid-round sleepers, probably the next sleeper video. And then we will have team fits as well. Got some good team draft fits ready. So I'm excited about this time of the year. My favorite time of the year here will be live during day one of the NFL draft. So join us, like, subscribe, turn notifications on. Make sure you follow our Twitter, link down below. It's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.